live and archived games. Read about the teams and players. Relive the big moments. Every season, the Trib Live High School Sports Network is your home for high school sports. The best seat in the house is on Trib HSSN.
Just when you think you know, you really don't. Our final edition of the WPIAL Scoreboard Show here on the Trib Live High School Sports Network. Final Friday of WPIAL football. There's championships tomorrow at Pine Richland, championships next Saturday at Acrisure. So this is it as far as WPIAL football. Now, there might be some state playoff games on Fridays. The 4A winner, the 6A winner may be playing next Friday, but this is it as far as the Scoreboard Show. And our show is presented by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go local, go with Edgar, helping injured people since 1982. Edgar Snyder and Associates, we thank them. They are a part of our postseason coverage, and they are part of this year's show. All right, so we have a 3A championship game set, a 2A championship game set, and a Class A championship half set. And that's where we're going to start. A stunner tonight at Tony Dorsett Stadium. Hopefully that's a good omen for the Pitt Panthers, who will be playing Notre Dame tomorrow. But the Laurel Spartans, the number 4 seed, 11-1. So, I mean, they're pretty darn good. Big 7 conference champions. They knock off the Fort Cherry Rangers 24-14, ending the amazing career of Matt Sieg. We'll be talking about that throughout the evening. It also snaps a 40-game win streak for Fort Cherry against WPIAL opponents. Their only losses over the last 3 years were in the state championship games. Their 2-year run of supremacy in District 7 also comes to an end. Laurel 24, Fort Cherry 14. The Spartans headed to the finals, I think, for the first time since 1989, when they lost to the Clairton Bears. And they could be seeing Clairton again. At last check, Clairton was up on Bishop Canavan in the other Class A semifinal game. Class 2A, Seton LaSalle had their hands full. Rematch with Washington for the Century Conference Championship. Rebels were down at the half, but they come back, eliminate the Little Prexies. Final score, Seton LaSalle 27, Washington 19. Back to the championship game for the Rebels. Second straight year. They lost to South Park a year ago. On Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. at Acrisure Stadium, they will take on the Steel Valley Ironmen back in the finals. Steel Valley tonight at Dormont Stadium. Impressive as they beat Western Beaver 34-7. We'll get a recap of that coming up. So it'll be Steel Valley against Seton LaSalle at 2 o'clock next Saturday. The Class 3A championship game is set for next Saturday at 5 o'clock, and it doesn't get any better than a battle of unbeatens, 1 versus 2, right? Avonworth this evening, 44-24 over North Park. Imani Christian, 48-0 over Central Valley. So it's 12-0 Avonworth, 12-0 Imani Christian next Saturday. We'll get a recap of that Imani thrashing of Central Valley coming up in a moment. And our first 5A final score is in. Second straight year, Peters Township knocks off rival Upper St. Clair in the semifinals. This much more impressive. Peters Township 31, Upper St. Clair 6. So the Indians back to the WPIAL championship game, and it could be for a third straight year against Pine Richland. Pine Richland Moon's still going on. That game, boy, give credit to the Tigers no matter how that game finishes. They have hung with Pine Richland throughout the night. So we'll wait for a final there before we speculate. But Peters Township punches their ticket. So 3 undefeated teams headed to Acrisure Stadium next Saturday throughout the day. 11 a.m. for Class A, 2 p.m. for 2A, 5 p.m. for 3A, and then the 5A championship game at 8 o'clock. All right, let's welcome in Paul Patera. Dormont Stadium tonight. He had the call of a very impressive performance, not only by Steel Valley, but as you were saying, Paul, before we got started, Deron Barksdale, a whole lot of him, and he's a big part of why the Ironmen are headed back to the finals.
What a performance by Barksdale. 37 carries, 262 yards. Coming into this game, he accounted for almost 70% of the total offense that Steel Valley had for this entire season. And he had more than that tonight with his 262 yards, scoring each of the 5 Steel Valley touchdowns. He ended each of the first 2 drives with touchdown runs, one of 2 yards, next one of 13 yards. Then the next time Western Beaver committed a cardinal sin, they punted to Deron Barksdale. 56 yards later, he's in the end zone. It's 21-0 at the half. Steel Valley not getting on the board again until the 5:37 mark of the third quarter, a 1-yard run by Deron Barksdale. Western Beaver finally got on the board, recovering a Steel Valley fumble at the Ironman 2-yard line. Impressive freshman quarterback, Amari Marshall, played this game hurt, played this game with guts tonight. A 2-yard run, just did a little bit of everything. This kid is going to be special as his career progresses at Western Beaver. Barksdale put the game away with a 6-yard run with 1:38 left to play. And then he put the seal on things on defense with an interception in the end zone. He also punts. He also holds on placements. He does a little bit of everything for the Steel Valley team. That's, like Ray Brazo said earlier this week, that's why he's going to the University of Pittsburgh. But Steel Valley now moves on, 9-3 on the season, 8-1 in their last 9 games, and they advance to take on Seton LaSalle, as you mentioned, on next Saturday afternoon at Acrisure Stadium for another WPIAL championship. The Ironmen have won 3 since that impressive 2016 season. Western Beaver, a great season. This is a young team. Ron Busby's team only has 8 seniors on the entire roster. We told you about the freshman quarterback, Wyatt Sparbaney, their running back, just a junior. Pratt, the talented receiver, is just a sophomore. So Western Beaver is going to be heard from again next year. End the season 9-2, but tonight it was all about the Steel Valley Ironmen and Deron Barksdale, as he's going to get a little head start on playing at Acrisure Stadium, getting to play there next week.
True. Good call. That's true.
Yep.
And we see that with programs, Paul, where, they sort of build youth, they get to a certain point, and then, that's, like you said, expect big things from them next year. They'll be the favorite in whatever conference. Now, we aren't sure because it's real.
Still to be determined.
Yeah, but, they'll definitely be a team that then by next year will be expected to maybe go all the way.
Yep. I was really impressed with Marshall, freshman quarterback. Plays with a lot of poise. And like with Marino Graham at Newcastle, you have to remind yourself he's just 14 years old.
Yep. Paul, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Paul Patera checking in, 34-7. Not much doubt in this one. Steel Valley knocks off Western Beaver, and again, Steel Valley against Seton LaSalle. Those are old conference. If you go back to the old Century Conference, those two were conference foes. So a rich tradition there, I'm sure, the Ironmen and the Rebels. All right, Lee Moan this evening, another game that really wasn't a whole lot up for grabs or in doubt, if you will, at Montour. Monty Christian, they got a test early in the week 0, right, against Clairton, and they pretty much dominated things, the entire Allegheny 7 conference. First, they had a first round bye, but the quarterfinals last week. I thought this would be a test. If it was a test that they passed with flying colors.
They passed completely with flying colors. This one, no doubt whatsoever, Don. Just Central Valley, they decided to defer the kickoff. It's like, okay, we're going to give Monty the ball first. 18 seconds into the game, Gabe Jenkins, a 40-yard run, 2-point conversion, no good, 6-0. Just 4 minutes later, David Davis, 75-yard run on a 95-yard drive, just 3 plays, 75 yards, make it 14-0. Anthony Portis, 56-yard fumble recovery, just 38 seconds later, it's 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. And then Davis with 2 more long touchdown yards of 80 or touchdown runs of 83 yards and 73 yards, 36-0 at half. They tack on 2 more, making it 48-0. On the night, 16 carries for 164 yards for Gabe Jenkins, 6 carries, 243 yards for David Davis. And the bad thing next week is that the discipline for Imani Christian again, 17 penalties again for 170 yards. That's where they're going to have to really do a lot better job against Avonworth, as though penalties, it just continues to haunt them. And when you're going to win a championship game against Avonworth, it can really come back to bite you. But Jenkins is one of the best athletes I've seen in a long time. Really runs hard. We just saw he's going to be going to North Carolina now. So, yeah. And then you got David Davis, and that offensive line is just powerful. It can just push back Central Valley constantly all night long. And Shearer on the other side for Central Valley, 26 carries, just 66 yards for the senior. So it's just a complete domination on both sides of the ball. But again, the discipline, they're going to need to really play a lot better next week against Avonworth.
Yeah, there's no question. And that's the key, I think, and you hit on it nicely, is you cannot aid and abet this Avonworth team. They are something special. Yes, Imani Christian's undefeated like Avonworth, but Avonworth has had a tough schedule. They're the defending champs. They're making their 4th straight trip to the WPIAL finals. First time for Imani Christian since 2017. They got to clean that up, because they'll get run out of the North Shore if they're sloppy with the ball or sloppy with flags against the Antelopes.
And that's going to be tough. I mean, if they fall down to Avonworth, does that discipline continue to unravel? Well, hopefully for them it won't happen. But I mean, they have the athletes for sure. I mean, the line here, the offensive and defensive line, they get some big boys up front, but so does Avonworth. So it's going to be a fun matchup between them two.
All right, you got your pit sweats, you got your pit hoodie on. You're ready to go for tomorrow, right, Pat?
Yeah, you know I do, right? Yeah, go Irish. Thank you.
Lima.
I will be at the game, by the way.
What's that?
I will be at the game tomorrow.
All right.
So.
H2P. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Lee.
Take care.
Lee lives on the dark side. What are you going to say? But, all Imani Christian, very impressive. 48-0 against a good Central Valley team. So, again, the matchup that I think a lot of people were hoping for, we get in the 3A championship game, 12-0 Avonworth, 12-0 Imani Christian. Before we get our next recap, the final is in from the other 5A semifinal. Again, really good game. Pine Richland holds on to defeat Moon 34-24. It was a 1-score game throughout. Late field goal by the Rams gives them the 10-point buffer. And Pine Richland, for a 4th straight year, headed back to the WPIAL championship. They are the defending champs. So you got now 11-1 Pine Richland, Peters Township at 12-0. That's the 5A championship at 8 o'clock. It's the third straight year that Pine Richland will take on Peters Township. That's only the 3rd time in WPIAL history that has happened. The first time was Aliquippa, South Fayette, mid-teens. I think it was 2013, 14, 15. The second time just happened over the last few years with North Allegheny Central Catholic. Now, they're meeting for a 4th, so that's the new record. But it's only happened one other time beside North Allegheny and Central Catholic in 6A, South Fayette and Aliquippa. So 3rd straight year, Pine Richland, Peters Township, 3rd time a charm. I guess the Indian fans hope so, as Pine Richland won both in 2023 and in 2024. All right, let's get probably a recap a lot of folks are waiting for. Bring in James Dotson, the eyebrow raiser of the night, the stunner of the night, whatever you want to call it. And again, when you use those terms, I think a lot of times the team that pulled off the victory can feel a little disrespected, but I just think it's nothing against Laurel that this is considered a pretty big upset. It's who they beat. Fort Cherry, two-time defending champs, hadn't lost to a WPIAL opponent since 2022. Just an amazing run, an amazing career, all comes to an end with an outstanding performance by the Laurel Spartans, James Dodson.
Final score of 24-14, Laurel defeating Fort Cherry. And as you just alluded to, Don, yes, that is the first loss after 40 consecutive victories against WPIAL opponents for Fort Cherry. In that stretch, their 2 losses came to Steelton High Spire and to Port Allegheny. In those games, the way that they lost the game was because the opposition controlled and dominated the line of scrimmage. That's the recipe for success the last 4 years against Fort Cherry. That was the Laurel recipe for success tonight. 264 rushing yards total for the Laurel Spartans, spread out over 5 different ball carriers in this 24-14 victory over Fort Cherry. We'll talk about Matt Sigg and his legacy here in a moment. He got everything going after taking the opening kickoff. Fort Cherry went backwards, a couple losses and a couple of penalties. They faced a 3rd down and 21. And Matt Sigg says, no problem. I'll just go 67 yards for the opening score, made it 7-0 Fort Cherry. Laurel responded the way they did all night with long, sustained drives, getting 3, 4, 5, 6 yards a pop the entire way down the field. An 11-play scoring drive capped off by a Colton Carlson 2-yard touchdown run. Point after made it 7-7. Fort Cherry's next possession, again, a couple penalties really hurt them after they got in plus territory. After a first down run, a personal foul penalty pushed them back 15 yards, and it also cost them 2nd down. No real explanation, but there was just no 2nd down run. They ended up having to punt it away. A long drive for Laurel in response, another 9-play drive. They got close to the red zone, but again, couldn't cap off a drive. The teams traded turnovers on downs until Laurel got the ball back with 3:45 remaining in the first half. And this time, it was quick punches, a couple of quick running plays, and then the first pass play of the entire game for either team came with just under 3 minutes to go in the first half, just under a minute and a half to go in the first half. Lucas Santini, the career all-time passing leader for Laurel, throws one up. Colton Carlson wins the jump ball from 30 yards out, made the score 13-7 as a low kick was blocked on the point after. Laurel with the lead late in the first half. The only Laurel penalty of the game came on the ensuing kickoff, a kickoff out of bounds. They Rangers elected to have them re-kick it, and a 60-yard kick return from Eli Salvini put the ball deep in the red zone. Fort Cherry capped off a 5-play drive with a Sig 1-yard keeper with just 17 seconds remaining in the first half, and they took a 14-13 lead to the locker room. But it was all Laurel in the second half. Opening kick, they drive right down the field. 6-play scoring drive capped off by Jack Miles with a touchdown run from 33 yards out, made it 21-14 early in the quarter. And there was nothing that Fort Cherry could do. They turned the ball over on downs on their next possession. Laurel drives down the field, another long drive, a 12-play drive taking over 7 minutes off the clock, gets it down inside the fourth quarter. Tony Geiwitz, a 31-yard field goal, made it a crucial 2-possession game. And then the last 2 possessions for Fort Cherry, both ending in turnovers. They put Matt Sig at wide receiver, try to get a jet sweep handoff, ends up fumbling it away. And on the last possession of the game, Sig makes an incredible catch of a pass. I believe it's his first catch of the year, maybe probably his first catch in many years since being at Fort Cherry. But he gets a 28-yard leaping catch. 2 plays later, though, a pass picked off by Jackson McVicker to end the game and give a 24-14 victory for the Spartans. Just some quick numbers, Don. 264 rushing yards in the game for Laurel versus just 179 on the ground for Fort Cherry. Spartans with over 100 yards more than the Rangers in the game. And I think the most impressive stat, unofficially, I have 33 rushing yards in the second half for Fort Cherry. The Laurel defense and the guys up front, got to give all 5 a shout out because it is a makeshift offensive line with an injury last week, including moving a new guy to the center position. Alex Medved at center, Tyler Fuchs and Dom Willis at the guards, Casey Wilson and Kevin Mahoney at the tackle position. They paved the way all night long, similar to what it was when they played the only other time before in the quarterfinals back in the mid-'80s, where they just controlled the line of scrimmage. And history repeats itself because it is Clareton who is awaiting again in the finals. party like it's 1989, last time the Spartans played in the championship game back at Three Rivers Stadium. They played the Clairton Bears that year. They played them when they played in the finals back in 1980 when the Spartans were WPIAL champions. It's going to be a third matchup there for a WPIAL championship between the Bears and the Spartans when we head to breakfast ball at the AC next week.
Yeah, Sparty fans may want to party like it's 1980 again, because that's when they beat the Bears 14-12, and then 89 27-20. Clairton got the win. And I was telling you, we were exchanging texts, and I appreciate your help on all the Lawrence County factoids. That 1989 game at Three River Stadium was my second year in the business, and I had the call of that game, that Clairton Laurel game. So,
and George Miles says hello. He's very appreciative of everything from that. He remembered back in the day. Don't you worry about it. But how crazy it is, though. So George Miles was the head coach. His son Ryan Miles was on that '89 team.
Yeah.
Well, George is now the special teams coach. Ryan is the offensive line coach, so big props to him for what this offensive line did tonight. Oh, and by the way, his youngest child, Jack Miles, the all-time tackles leader at Laurel, had the game of his life, a career-high 90 rushing yards. Listen to these numbers real quick, Don. 11 carries for 90 for Jack Miles, 11 for 65 for Colton Carlson. They each have a touchdown run. 10 carries for 44 for Nathan Hill, 8 for 35 for J.J. McBride, and 6 for 32 for Lucas Santini. All of them getting involved, spreading the wealth. It felt like a wing T offense. They ran that T formation, kind of like what Rochester likes to run. And they, again, spread the wealth, everybody getting it done. And final numbers for Matt Sig, 24 carries for $159 and 2 touchdowns. Also caught a 28-yard touchdown pass. A historic career, obviously, coming to an end tonight. What more can you say? He's number 2 rusher all-time, career yards, touchdowns, record across the WPIAL. Will be remembered forever. Not the way, obviously, that he and the Fort Cherry faithful wanted to see his career come to an end, but just a complete team domination effort in the trenches here tonight for the Spartans led to this victory.
Amazing. You got a little nervous there when Laurel, trying to run out the clock, fumbled, but they got the ball right back, and they hold on to win 24-14. James, thank you for all your help, pal.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you down with those yellow chairs, and I got a few people over here wearing a different navy gold and blue over to my right. So I won't say any words, but I think you can imagine. Let's go, Irish! Oh, never mind. They said it.
Well, you got to control those rowdy people, man. Those rowdy people. They're tailgating early. Thank you, James.
Thank you, sir, Rebel.
Navy blue and gold. 50 years ago, sadly, again, I was young, but that big Tony Dorsett game, 303 yards, running wild on Notre Dame. Yeah, that's right. We'll see what happens. All the finals are in. Run them down here for you in a moment. Here on, again, it's our final show, so changing things up a little bit. We'll be starting the round table a little earlier. Kyle Dawson and Sean Saputo will be joining me for that. We should be getting one more recap. We'll wait and see. It was the Pine Ridge Lamoon game, which, just ended relatively not that long ago. Mike Munchinsky on Facebook was asking about streaming the championships. We can tell you this. Again, we can't stream the audio or the video. That's all NFHS. That's the WPIAL deal. Sorry. Is what it is. But we will be streaming the audio. Go a little old school. Both tomorrow's games at Pine Richland, noon. The McKeesport Aliquippa game, 6 p.m. North Allegheny Central Catholic. And then we will be streaming the 4 championship games at Acrisure Stadium as well. We can tell you the matchups now. 11 a.m. breakfast on the North Shore. The Laurel Spartans against the Clairton Bears. 2 p.m. the 2A championship game. Seton LaSalle Rebels against the Steel Valley Ironmen. 5 p.m. It'll be dark by then. Avonworth Antelopes, 4th straight year for them. They'll be taking on Imani Christian in a battle of unbeatens. And then at 8 p.m., third straight year, the Pine Richland Rams and the Peters Township Indians in the 5A championship game. So all of the 6 championships, 2 tomorrow, 4 next Saturday, audio streamed at hssn.triblive.com. And again, if you want to watch, I think there's TV coverage next Saturday, but the NFHS has the rights, and they'll be streaming all of those championship games as well. Let's run down the scores before we, again, expecting one more recap, but we'll see. And then we'll get into the roundtable. Class 5A, tough performance for the Moon Tigers, but not enough. They lose to the Pine Richland Rams 34-24. The Tigers season comes to an end at 9-4. The Rams improve to 11-1, looking to three-peat as they once again will take on the Peters Township Indians at Acrisure. Peters Township 31, Upper St. Clair 6. Panthers season ends at 10-3, and it ends for their second straight year in the semifinals with a loss to the rival Indians. Peters improves to 12-0. So 12-0, Peters Township, 11-1, Pine Richland, 8 o'clock at Acrisure Stadium. Third straight year, 2 years ago, Pine Richland defeated Peters Township 43-17. A little closer last year, Rams 20, Indians 9. 3A semifinals tonight, Avonworth 44, North Catholic 24. Second time this year that the Antelopes knock off the Trojans. North Catholic season ends at 9-4. Avonworth improves to 12-0. Up next, 12-0, Imani Christian. The Warriors crush the Central Valley, or the Saints crush the Central Valley Warriors 48-0. Central Valley season ends at 7-5. The last time Imani Christian was in the championship game, 2017, it was Class A. They lost to Jeanette in a heartbreaker, 35-34. Last time Avonworth was in the championship game was last year. In fact, they've been in this will be 4 straight years for the Lopes in the 3A championship game. 2A semifinals, Seton LaSalle down at the half, comes back to knock off Washington 27-19. Second win for the Rebels over the Little Prexies in the last 3 weeks. Seton beat them in week 9, beat Wash High in week 9 to win the Century Conference Championship. Little Prexies season ends at 10-3. Seton LaSalle, second straight year to the Big House with an 11-1 record. They will take on the Steel Valley Ironmen. Steel Valley defeats Western Beaver 34-7. Golden Beaver's first semifinal appearance in 30 years does not go their way as they finish the season with a record of 10-3. 9-3 is the record for the Steel Valley Ironmen heading into their third championship game in the last 4 years. The Barksdale brothers, old Donald Barksdale, starred in a championship team a few years ago. Now, younger brother Duran doing the heavy lifting for Steel Valley. He had a big game again tonight in that win over Western Beaver. That's the 1 o'clock game, Seton LaSalle against Steel Valley. And breakfast on the North Shore, 11 a.m. Clareton Bears expected to be there. They beat Bishop Canavan 42-22. Second straight year, the Bears eliminate the Crusaders in the semifinals. Bishop Canavan season ends at 9-4. Clareton 12-1, and they will be taking on the Laurel Spartans. Laurel stuns Fort Cherry 24-14, ending the successful career of Matt Sieg, one of the all-time greats. He'll be remembered as at Fort Cherry. Ends the Rangers' 2-year run of supremacy in the district. Also ends their 40-game win streak against WPIAL opponents. 24-14, Laurel over Fort Cherry. Rangers season ends at 12-1. The Spartans to the championship game, as you just heard from James Dotson, for the first time since 1989, when they lost to Clareton 27-20 at Three River Stadium. Spartans are 12-1. So a pair of 12-1 teams will duke it out. The black and orange against the green and white at Acrisure Stadium, 11 a.m. on Saturday. All right. Couple other things here, and then we'll get to the round table. This is technically the first round of the PIAA playoffs. Yes, the WPIAL playoffs are still going on. The 4A and 6A champions will head into the quarterfinals round next week in the PIAA. In fact, we can tell you that the McKeesport Aliquippa winner will be taking on District 10 winner Oil City tonight in the first round. Oil City eliminates Punxsutawney 47-19. The Oilers improved to 10-1. They will play the winner of Aliquippa and McKeesport. The 6A championship tomorrow, North Allegheny against Central Catholic. The winner of that game next week, either Friday or Saturday, will play the winner of tomorrow afternoon's game between State College, 9-2, and Wilkes-Barre, 8-4. That game is at Milton Hershey High School tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. So by kickoff of North Allegheny Central Catholic, they should know who they will be playing next week in the quarterfinals of the state playoffs. The other 4 classification winners in 2 weeks will jump into the state playoffs in the semifinals round. So just an FYI there. Westinghouse, the City League runners-up, only team left from District 8. They were in action after a 2-week hiatus. This evening, they were taking on District 5 champion Myersdale, and the Bulldogs blank the Red Raiders 44-0. Only the second loss of the season for Myersdale. Their season now over. Westinghouse improves to 7-4. That victory also ends a 2-game skid. They'll play either Bishop Guilfoyle or Juniata Valley, and I'll ask my producer, Chris Lackner, to see if he can track down that score. That game was played tonight in Altoona. Juniata Valley and Bishop Guilfoyle Academy. Of course, the Marauders are the defending state champs in Class A. That's who Westinghouse will play next week. Also going on this weekend, the PIAA soccer and girls volleyball championships, and there are some teams from the WPIAL, 2 girls soccer teams, 1 boys soccer team playing at Northeastern High School this weekend. Burrell, the Burrell girls, who knocked off Freeport in the semifinals after losing to Freeport in the WPIAL championship, they lose tonight in overtime to District 12 champion Archbishop Wood 2-1. So the Vikings are the state champions. Buccaneers, great season. They will settle for state silver. Tomorrow, girls, South Fayette against Radnor. That's a 1 o'clock start tomorrow afternoon. And in Class A boys, the lone WPIAL boys team to reach the finals, Bentworth, will take on Delaware County. Bentworth, the 3-time WPIAL champion, still searching for that first ever PIAA crown. That's a 4 o'clock start at Northeastern High School tomorrow. 3 district girls volleyball teams are in action tomorrow at Cumberland Valley. 2A Avonworth. They were, I think, like an 11th seed in the WPIAL tournament. It's just a stunning postseason for the Lopes. They reached the PIAA championship tomorrow. They will play Lansdale Catholic at Cumberland Valley. That's a 10:30 a.m. start in the 2A championship. Oh, excuse me, that's a 1:30 or 1 o'clock start. The 10:30 is the Class A game. 1 o'clock start for Avonworth Lansdale Catholic tomorrow afternoon. 3A championship game, Oakland Catholic will take on Pope John Paul II. They're undefeated, by the way. That's a 3:30 start. And then at 6 p.m. at Cumberland Valley, Pine Richland goes for gold, trying to keep the tradition of 4A champions that North Allegheny has done so well over the years. Pine Richland will take on Springford in the 4A girls volleyball championship game, state championship game tomorrow at 6 p.m. All right, let's get our final recap of the night, and then we'll bring in Kyle Dawson, Sean Saputo for the round table, looking ahead to tomorrow's games and also commenting on tonight's final scores. Bring in Alex Lyons. He had the call on NFHS tonight of the 5A semifinal game. Very competitive contest between Pine Richland and Moon. Tigers hung for a while, but just couldn't get it done in the end.
Yeah, Pine Richland They did not trail in this game at all. And after Moon took the football to start, Tigers went nowhere but backwards. They got a fourth down conversion thanks to an encroachment call, but Pine Richland's defense stiffened. And on third down, it was backwards for Andrew Cross, fumbled the football back at the 9-yard line. So an abysmal start for really the Moon offense after they picked up a first down. And then a short punt would mean first down and 10 from the 34-yard line of the Tigers for Pine Richland. Moon's defense forced a negative play on the first play, but the second play, not so much. 37 yards later, as Strader would find Khalil Taylor for his first touchdown of the night, making it 7-0. 2 plays, 34-yard drive, 44 seconds, and the Rams led it 7-0. Moon, though, they'd bounce back nicely as they'd get the ball at the 26-yard line and march methodically right down the field. Cross would pick up 20 with his legs, then go to Vendetti for passes of 12 and 17 yards, setting up a first down and 10 from the 11, as Cross would go across the middle to Stewart for a gain of 10 down to the 1-yard line, setting up first down and goal at the 1. So just when the Tigers looked like they were knocking on the door to tie the game up, they'd go backwards on first down, and then Khalil Taylor, 4 yards deep into the end zone, would pick off Cross, return it 104 yards for the pick six, making it 14-0 in favor of Pine Richland. But Moon did not blink as they would get a huge completion to end the first quarter of 17 yards from Cross to Stewart. And then on the very first play of the second quarter, Cross would go back to the well, Stewart for 64 yards as the Navy commit would sprint into the end zone, making it 14-7. And the Tigers defense, it was Bronaugh would come away with the interception of Strader, setting up first down and 10 from the 48-yard line of Moon. And Moon was able to march down the field thanks to a 42-yard pitch and catch as Cross went to Rivas. But Jay Timmons and Andrew Getty with back-to-back sacks would eventually force a 44-yard Senkovich field goal, making it 14-10. Pine Richland thought they had the lead increased with a big 58-yard scamper by the quarterback as Ubi went right up the gut, but it was negated via a holding call, forced a punt attempt, or so they thought, but Khalil Taylor would keep it at his own 34-yard line and was knocked down for no gain by Moyer. So Moon was set up first down and 10 from the Pine Richland 32, could not do anything. They would go for a 46-yard field goal attempt as Sankovic sailed it wide left, and that would give the Tigers give Pine Richland the ball right back, and Schrader would go 48 yards into the end zone for a touchdown. This one would not come back, making it a 21-10 game. Moon would get on the board on their final drive, but they lost a lot more than they gained. After a few run plays, Cross would roll out left, got knocked down late. Roughing the passer was called, moving the ball to the 40-yard line, but that was the final play we would see the Penn State baseball commit Andrew Cross in this game. He would leave and not return with an injury, but after the roughing the passer, Dante Henry, the sophomore, would go 40 yards up the middle, cutting the deficit down to 21-17 at the half. But Pine Richland, they would capitalized on their opening drive. Strader, a 55-yard run, setting up eventually a 17-yard Mestre field goal, making it 24-17. After a Henry fumble recovered by Andrew Getty, Strader would take it 42 yards down to the 8-yard line and then cap off the drive with his second rushing touchdown of the game, making it 31-17. But the Moon Tigers would claw back into this game. After Aiello thought he had an interception, it was overturned via the pass interference call. Moon would get new life, and on 3rd and 21, another Webb pass interference call would change 3rd and 21 to 3rd down and 9. Eventually, it would become 4th and 3, and on 4th and 3, Dante Henry misdirection would go back and find Moyer all alone on the right side in the end zone for his first touchdown of the season on his second reception, making it a 31-24 game. But Moon was unable to capitalize, got the ball back with 10:34, a chance to tie, but went 3 and out, and that was all she wrote. Pine Richland would get the ball back with 8.5, take over 4 minutes off the clock, add 3 more on a Mestre field goal, making it 34-24, and Moon season comes to an end at 9-4. Pine Richland was in their 12th straight semifinal. They have now won 4 in a row, setting up that rubber match meeting with Peters Township. Peters Township won 2 years ago. Pine Richland won last year, and Pine Richland has a chance to become that first 5A school to win back-to-back titles after denying Peters Township of that a year ago.
34-24 game effort by the Tigers. Got my moon colors on. But they fall to Pine Richland, and it's back to the championship game for the Rams. Alex, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Don. Have a good weekend.
You do the same. Let's give you that score that we were looking for in the PIAA playoffs tonight in Class A first round. Bishop Guilfoyle, defending champs, not messing around. They beat up on Juniata Valley. That was a District 6 championship game. 62-6. The Marauders victorious. So it'll be Bishop Guilfoyle Academy against Westinghouse in a PIAA Class A contest quarterfinals game next week, either Friday, Saturday, sites to be determined in that one. So there you go. The Westinghouse, a victory tonight, and they get the job done, but we'll have a big test next week against Bishop Guilfoyle Academy. They're called Academy now. All right. And I misspoke earlier. I said Pine Richland going for 3 straight wins. And I appreciate Alex setting the record straight. Peters Township did win in 2023, 43-17. So it is the rubber game, not a 3-game sweep attempt for Pine Richland. So I think that's good, right? See, the war to settle the score will be next week. Unless these teams want to keep going and meet again, although we'll see what the classification, how that plays out if they're still in 5A. Pine Richland, they end up in the state championship game, they will be in 6A. So that'll end that run of those two teams playing each other. All right, enough. Let's get to the round table here on our final edition of the Scoreboard Show. Just want to remind everyone that the Scoreboard Show is presented by Edgar Snyder and Associates. Go local. Go with Edgar, helping injured people since 1982. There you go, edgarsnyder.com. Thank you, Christopher. And thank you to Edgar Snyder. Bring in Kyle Dawson, bring in Sean Saputo. These two gentlemen, these two young men, will be on the call of their respective games tomorrow. Kyle and Greg A. Smith with the call of the 4A championship game that you can hear audio here on the network. Aliquippa against McKeesport. And then at 6 p.m., Sean Saputo, Ed Troop, North Allegheny Central Catholic take 4. And we'll preview those games, and we'll also talk about the outcomes here tonight. Sean, you're not driving, are you?
I'm driven, Don. I'm driven for the success.
That didn't answer my question. Are you driving?
Yes, I'm driving right now.
What are you doing, dude? Come on. I tell you what. While you're driving,
dedication.
No, it's you need to focus. Focus.
I'm 1 minute away from my destination. I'm okay.
All right. Well, while you're doing your 1 minute destination, let's take him out and we'll focus on Kyle. When we bring Sean back, he can preview North Allegheny Central. But right now, let's preview Aliquippa McKeesport, second time in 3 years for the Quips and Tigers. Kyle.
Yeah, and we were on the playoff pairing show, and I think to the credit of Aliquippa, I think a lot of people kind of wrote off the Quips this year to some degree. Maybe not really. And obviously, they've done a nice job to kind of come back and get a couple big wins in the playoffs here. Win over Trinity on the road is the 7 seed over the 2 seed, no matter how you dice it in terms of the seeding. That's still a very impressive win. And they get Marcus Council back in that game. Their starting quarterback, the Ivy League commit that returns to the lineup in first or second quarter of that game at Trinity, ends up throwing a touchdown pass to Josh Lay with about 20 seconds left to end Trinity's historic season and their first conference championship since I think the 80s. And then a really impressive win last week against Newcastle. The Red Hurricane unable to score, only one play of 20-plus yards. A Newcastle team that had beaten Aliquippa during the regular season. Aliquippa was off to a 3-2 start, which maybe isn't like the Aliquippa of old, and maybe this isn't your brothers or your uncles or your grandfathers or dad's Aliquippa team, but they find a way back into the championship game for the 17th time in 18 years. Mike Warfield steps back into the fold this year now in his 7th season at the helm of the Quips program, and he's got him at 8-3. Aliquippa will return to the championship game after their historic 16-year streak of getting to the championship game came to a close in 2024. They get back and they play a really good McKeesport team, and what'll be a rematch of the 2023 for a championship game. This will be the 3rd straight title game appearance for McKeesport, who is also at a 3-loss record. The McKeesport Tigers are 9-3 on the season here and looking to do some damage tomorrow and get over the hump for a championship, looking for their 5th WPIAL championship and first in 20 years. It'll be since 2005. They have not won a championship at the district level. So a big chance for McKeesport tomorrow with number 1 running back in the country, Keemon Spell, who was awesome last week. 97-yard touchdown, a 72-yard touchdown in the win against Thomas Jefferson, which was a little bit of revenge for McKeesport from not only earlier in the regular season, a game Keemon Spell only had 3 carries in, but a revenge game from the 2024 championship that they lost to Thomas Jefferson last year. So I think this is going to be a really good game, and we can continue to talk about it as we go on throughout the course of the evening. But these are 2 teams, and Don mentioned this when he was on the Team of the Week podcast that I took a listen to earlier with Matt Miller, the 10th-year head coach of the Tigers. And this is something that strikes me, too. These 2 teams seem very, very similar. A lot of athletes, a lot of speed. They close gaps quickly on defense. They're stout and big up front. And they both like to really run the football with a lot of success. And Aliquippa does it with a handful of different players. J.J. Work will be in the mix. Akiva Woods will be in the mix. Marcus Council will probably run it a little bit. Clester Longmire will do some running. This team is legit on the ground, and now they've added that pass back into the fold with Marcus Council returning to the lineup. And really, the story for McKeesport is that offense, that triple option that's so hard to stop. And over the years, not many teams have been super successful at doing it. And then you add in the number 1 running back in the country and Keemon Spell, and over 300 yards last week. He's got 1,600 yards despite the fact that he's basically missed 4 games this year. I think this is going to be a hell of a football game tomorrow between Aliquippa and McKeesport. And to that point of them being the same, it's 2 very good defenses as well, and 2 defenses that have been awesome in the playoffs for their respective sides.
Aliquippa has always, with the great success they've had, they've always gone into these games with the it factor. You know, the Tyke Hayes type players that are the it players, and that's the advantage McKeesport I think has in this game with Keemon Spell and how good he is and what a great season he's had. Kyle and Greg A. Smith with the call at noon on the network of the 4A championship game. 6 o'clock, North Allegheny Central Catholic for the 4th straight year, a WPIAL record 4th straight year, as the Vikings look for the equalizer, now parked and safely at destination, Sean Saputo.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how North Allegheny handles this championship game tomorrow night. It was that 21-6 loss this season that really kind of started to sputter North Allegheny offensively. After that, they struggled to beat Norwin 20-17. They were struggling to put up points on the board against Mount Lebanon and against Cannon McMillan in 2 games that were vastly closer than a lot of people thought that they would be. And then as the season wound down, the 67-0 lost to Pine Richland, and then they lost to Seneca Valley in the final week of the regular season. But North Allegheny turned things around in that playoff win last week against Norwin, with winning 35-17. It's all going to depend on Brady Brinkley and Luke Rohan. If Brinkley can be on target, he's only at about 55% completion percentage this year. If he can be on target a little bit more and find some openings at the receiver position, if they can get open, that's going to help out North Allegheny. And Luke Rohan has to be solid in the backfield. He's averaging 101 yards per game. He's going to need to run for 100-plus yards tomorrow night against this Central Catholic team. But it's going to be so hard to do, and it's so hard to stop this Central Catholic team. They have rolled through this 2025 season. They have a front line on the offensive line of 4 starters that are going to Division I schools. Owen Harrett, he is a great sophomore quarterback. He already has an offer from Syracuse. Jaden Alexander has done a fantastic job taking the reins at the running back position. Chris Black, he's another one that is getting a lot of looks from Division I teams, and he really hasn't touched the ball all that much on the offensive side. So for North Allegheny to win this football game tomorrow, they are going to need to find a way to hold off that front line of the Central Catholic Vikings on the offense and get into the backfield, create turnovers, tackles for loss, anything to push Central Catholic back, and maybe with the hope that penalties can help them as well. But North Allegheny on the offensive end, they have to find a way to move the chains. They cannot fall into an offensive rut like they did over a 5-week stretch and then finally picked it up last week. And it really wasn't even until the second half last week that North Allegheny got themselves going offensively. So if they can take that momentum into tomorrow night, it could make for an interesting game. But Central Catholic, last year they dominated that championship game against North Allegheny. They're looking to do the same thing again this week.
6 p.m. Vikings go in as the favorite, having knocked off NA earlier this year. And like Sean, you mentioned, the finish of this Tiger season was kind of a head scratcher, but I thought that was a very impressive bounce back against a very good Norwin team last week. We'll see if it carries over tomorrow. Pine Richland High School, so short trip for Bob Bizzuto's gang of black and gold. See if that has any factor at all. Likely not in the outcome. All right, we got Sean Saputo, Kyle Dawson, Sean's, and Ed Troop tomorrow, 6 p.m. on the network for the call of the 6A championship game. All right, let's talk about what happened tonight around the WPIAL. Just general thoughts. We'll in 5A. We'll start with Kyle, and then we'll flip flop and that kind of thing. The 5A semifinals this evening: Pine Richland 34, Moon 24. We just heard the incredibly detailed report from Alex Lyons on that one, and Peters Township, impressive. Beating up on a pretty good Upper St. Clair team, 31-6.
Yeah, both losing starting quarterbacks hurt in their respective games. Andrew Cross a little bit banged up for Moon, and I was listening to a lot of the Upper St. Clair and the other Upper St. Clair Peters Township game for a good portion of at least the first half. And Upper St. Clair was hanging with them for a while there until Ethan Hellman went down. Josh Snyder came in. I think he ended up scoring a touchdown or being factored into a field goal drive for Upper St. Clair. But yeah, that's a really impressive Peters Township team that can really defend the football. And that's a good Upper St. Clair offense that they had to contend with for a second time tonight. Pine Richland Moon, again, I don't know that it's much of a surprise that 3 Allegheny 6 teams ended up in the semifinals. The Moon Tigers put up a nice fight against Pine Richland, but I think that's a team that's been on a little bit of a mission throughout the course of the year. They really wanted the North Allegheny game a couple weeks ago. They get a couple impressive playoff victories and quite frankly, a pretty damn impressive playoff victory tonight against Moon to go back to the championship game. And now the rematch of last year's and the year before that's even championship between 2 really good football teams with, I think, a lot to play for down at Acrisure in the nightcap next week.
Yeah, I mean, Peters Township, once Ethan Hellman went down, it changed the complete tide of that game. Upper St. Clair had struggles against good defenses this year, going back even to the Moon game where Hellman went under 100 yards passing against the Moon Tigers, which leads me to that game. And to me, I'm not surprised by the way the Moon Tigers were able to stay in that football game against Pine Richland just because, 34 points they gave up, but that's a really good Pine Richland offense. And Pine Richland's going to find their ways to score, but Moon held their own throughout that entire game. And when I saw them against Upper St. Clair, I knew that was going to be a team that was going to be a hard out. And they proved that how hard of an out they were tonight against Pine Richland. And you know what? It's going to be interesting to see how Pine Richland does against a defense that's probably even better in Peters Township, because when Peters and Moon played, that was a war as well. And Peters Township had to win that game down the stretch. So if you're watching film, if you're these two coaches, I look back at both of these Moon games to see what I need to do to slow down these offenses.
43-17, Peters over Pine Richland 2 years ago. Last year, Pine Richland turned the tables 20-9. Rams trying to win their second straight. Indians going for 2 out of 3. Next Saturday, 8 o'clock, the capper at Acrisure Stadium, Pine Richland against Peters Township. Let's go to 3A, and we'll start with you, Sean. Avonworth rolls past North Catholic 44-24, and Imani Christian 48, Central Valley nothing. That is uber impressive. Sets up a battle of the undefeated.
Can't say we're surprised by the two outcomes and who we're going to see in the 3A championship game, just on the way these two teams played all season long. But I can say I'm shocked at the way that Imani Christian handled Mark Lyons' Central Valley squad. The way that team played throughout the back half of the stretch and against a lot of tough non-conference opponents, I'm stunned that they were not able to put a touchdown on the board. Joey Felitsky, I mean, he got his yardage in the end. He put up some, late points for North Catholic, but it was a 44-10 game at one point, and Avonworth was just on a roll tonight. And the Lopes are such a dangerous team. I had the opportunity to see Avonworth this season as well, and it's going to be very interesting how the Division I led Imani Christian Saints with Gabe Jenkins, Davis, how are they going to be up against a Avonworth team? And the one thing that Imani still does is they have some hiccups that they've been able to get away with throughout the year, turning the ball over, a little bit of sloppy play. They're not going to be able to do that against Avonworth next week because the Lopes will jump all over them if they play sloppy at any point in that
17
game.
Penalties tonight for the Saints.
And that's just been a dynamic for the year for them. They cannot have penalty problems and sloppiness at any point next week because Avonworth, it can be a close game, or if they play like that, the Avonworth can mercy roll them.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that point. We've been saying that about Imani. I think both times I was either on the round table or on the pairing show, we talked about that. Imani can be as athletic, as talented, and fast as they want to be. But you have 17 penalties against that wagon at Avonworth, you're going to have a really, really hard time even staying in the football game. And to have, give them credit, to have 17 penalties and to still win 48-0 is pretty impressive in its own right. But this is not Central Valley. No disrespect to the Warriors. Avonworth is a wagon. A really, really tough non-conference gauntlet from weeks 2 to 5. They came out of that with flying colors. A winner over a healthy Aliquippa team earlier this year, which is a finalist in Class 4A. They blew out Thomas Jefferson, which was a really good team in Class 4A as well. Beat a really good Hopewell offense and that Hopewell Vikings team in a race-away win against the same Central Valley team that Imani beat tonight in the semifinals. And their defense has been awesome. The offense is still rolling. Duke John Core has done a tremendous job with that program. Carson Bellinger has been great again this year, and Luke and Neal has been awesome. Dimitri Velisaris has over 1,000 yards, probably closer to 1,500 at this point on the ground. So, yeah, Imani's really good. So is Avonworth. And I think it really does come down to which team. And I would think Avonworth is probably the one that would be favored on a quote-unquote sports book to do so, is to play a cleaner game down at Acrisure Stadium, that's who comes out on top, you would think, in a game that's defined by skill and speed and power and all the 9 yards and adjectives that you can use to describe these two teams.
Saints and Lopes, 5 p.m. Saturday, in a battle of teams now combined 24-0 here in 2025. 2A semifinals, Kyle. Seton LaSalle, the only game that was a one-score game, as it turns out. Seton LaSalle holds off Washington, second time in 3 weeks, 27-19. Rebels over the Little Prexies. Up next, the Steel Valley Ironmen, Duron Barksdale, a monster game as they win over Western Beaver 34-7.
Yeah, a Steel Valley team that we talked about on the pairing show, and when the brackets were released, that kind of busted brackets a little bit in Class 2A with their win over South Allegheny. And no surprise, that program and that team has done the job in the postseason. Definitely a little bit surprised after early in the game tonight between Seton LaSalle and Washington. Wash High was up early. And the Prexies fumbled the ball 3 times in the fourth quarter and turned the ball over 3 times in the fourth quarter. And what was until late a 1-point game. And it entered the third quarter, I think, at 20-19 in favor of Seton. So I'm not surprised to see that game a lot closer than the first time was. But I think if you're the Washington Little Prexies, you may be a little bit of a sour taste in the mouth, not just because your season has come to an end tonight, but they were in the red zone when they fumbled to start the fourth quarter, I think at like the 13-yard line. So a real tough way for them to lose tonight to a really good Seton program. Obviously, they were down there last year too, and I think it sets up a really fun matchup between a couple of teams that have a ton of talent. I mean, every team that makes the championship game is going to have a ton of talent, but it was fun to watch Seton LaSalle throughout the year last year, fun to watch them again this year, and obviously Steel Valley and Duron Barksdale, and it's had a great season and a great win tonight and a big night for Barksdale.
Not one, not two, 3 fumbles inside the 20-yard line for the Washington Prexies tonight. I mean, that, and at one point, Seton LaSalle held the ball for 18 minutes of play in a row, and that play is a big factor in why Seton LaSalle was able to come back in that game and win. And Don, you and I talked about it with the Seton LaSalle team on the roundtable last week. Everything that they went through in the offseason, from Anthony Smith to Khalil Taylor, everything, losing your starting quarterback to graduation and no idea what's going to go on. Seton LaSalle, it's like they didn't skip a beat. They just continued to roll as if nothing happened in that offseason. You would think with everything going on that would be a distraction, and it never was for the Seton LaSalle team. On the flip side, ever since Steel Valley lost to Apollo Ridge, it's like a switch flipped for that Ironmen team. They have played their best football down the stretch here. So it's going to be really interesting. And I think that has the opportunity to be one of, if not the best matchup at Acrisure next Saturday, because they are two teams that have a contrasting style. And it's going to be interesting if Steel Valley, can they run the football well, do what they do best against Seton LaSalle, and can Seton LaSalle continue to keep that spread attack rolling? It's going to be a really, really good game next week, I think, in 2A.
It's a 2 p.m. kick, Seton LaSalle and Steel Valley for the WPIAL 2A championship. And finally, in Class A, really the big story of the night, and Sean, we'll start with you since you were there at Hopewell. Laurel over Fort Cherry, 24-14. Clairton defeats Bishop Canavan, 42-22. The two hot topics here: what has happened to the Clairton defense, but more so, obviously, is the end of an amazing career for Matt Sieg and the end of a 40-game win streak against the WPL. What a performance by Laurel.
Laurel just dominated the front line. They dominated time of possession, and that's what got them the win tonight. Fort Cherry was just a little too one-dimensional. Everything, they ran tonight was Matt Sieg, and they were doing well getting to the edges on outside zones, but Laurel in the second half adjusted, and they cut off the edges and they took away the outside zone, and it limited Fort Cherry offensively with Matt Sig not being able to throw the ball really well. He had 2 passes tonight, and one of them was a spike to stop the clock late in the second quarter. He only threw the ball 27 times this season, so they were very one-dimensional, but Laurel just did a fantastic job in winning in the front, and they ran a very full house backfield, 3 backs in the backfield, and it caught Fort Cherry off guard. You never knew who was going to get the football, and the front line got good pushes. They got 4, 5, 6 yards every first down carry, and that's why the Laurel Spartans came out on top tonight. And on the flip side, how dare the Clairton Bears give up 74 points this season? 55 in the last 2 weeks. How dare they? I mean, that it's going to be interesting to see if Laurel can have that kind of domination on the front line like they did tonight against Fort Cherry, because Fort Cherry has no slouches on that defensive line. They are a solid defensive line, but Clairton has more speed than Fort Cherry does on the front line, and they're going to load the box, and Clairton is going to tackle well, and Fort Cherry didn't tackle well tonight. So it's going to be the speed of Clairton against the very strong front line of Laurel. I'm curious if Santini throws the ball a little more next week. He only threw 5 times tonight. So I think they're going to need to open up the playbook a little bit more next week against Clairton.
Yeah. Well, first off, big time stunner, obviously, and I think Don made the great point when James was on earlier. That's meant in no disrespect whatsoever to Laurel. I was listening to the very end of that game, and Sean and the guys and Bob on the call there, and the overrated chants happened from the Laurel. I assume the Laurel students, and that's just, I mean, come on now. Matt Sig is legitimately has the most yards ever in the WPIAL, and I think the most touchdowns as well. I mean, that kid, something else to watch. Not only on offense, but he's going to go play defense in college, and he's going to be damn good at doing it. A generational talent, but let's be clear too about Fort Cherry in 40 straight wins against District 7 opponents. It isn't just Matt Sig. And that team's loaded with a bunch of talent on both sides of the ball. They're physical. Tanner Gary, I think, has done a tremendous job turning that football program back around. And I would imagine they'll still be in the hunt without Matt Sig if they can continue to try to pull that talent back in and see what happens. But what a win for the Laurel Spartans. And it took a monumental defensive effort and a little bit of luck maybe last year with Fort Cherry beating Clairton in the 1A championship game. And it's going to take another monumental defensive effort from Laurel again next week. And if they're up to it, great. I think a lot of people expected, if not everybody expected, Clairton and Fort Cherry to meet again in the championship game. I don't know that we would have expected Clairton to have given up 55 points in the last 2 weeks to Jeanette and a pretty good Bishop Canevin team. Let's take nothing away from either of those two teams that put up some points on Clairton. But, man, the Bears just keep rolling. Wayne Wade has his team. They've got this down to a science, the 11 a.m. game at Acrisure Stadium. And I would be, again, I hate to do this after Laurel just stunned us tonight, but I would be pretty stunned if Clairton didn't come away with a win at Acrisure at 11 a.m. in the Breakfast Bowl on Saturday. But it was wrong tonight. And so not saying it can't happen, but I would – Clairton's just so good.
So I didn't know this, and I got to throw this out there. There's going to be another Sig next year at Fort Cherry.
Your brother.
And his brother, I was told, is already bigger than Matt. So there might be another 4-year run coming for Tanner Gary and the Rangers. Yeah, they said he's already bigger than Matt in 8th grade.
Wow. Stay tuned. Let's give some love to the teams. I've always said that, to me, especially here in football, where the prize is a trip to the big house, whether that's Three River Stadium back in the day, Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium. That's a memory. We're going to have 8 teams down there next Saturday, and 8 teams will come away with gold and continue their season. 8 teams, their season win. But even for those 8 teams that their seasons end, that's a memory that they'll have forever. And that bond with their teammates. They could lose 50-0, and still we played there when they watch games on TV. The semifinal is the toughest cut of all. You come up just short of one of your goals, which is to play on the North Shore. Moon Tigers 9-4, Upper St. Clair Panthers 10-3, 2 of the 3 to Peters Township. North Catholic Trojans 9-4, 2 of their losses to Avonworth. Central Valley 7-5. Washington 10-3 with 2 of those losses to Seton LaSalle. Western Beaver, young team, 10-3. Bishop Canevin 9-4, and Fort Cherry 12-1. A salute to those teams. They're bumming, and they're going to be bumming for a while, but tremendous 2025 campaigns here this fall. One thing I want to get your respective opinions on is we're going to see a lot of the same old. We get a rematch in the 5A championship game for a third straight year. Again, that is the third most. We had Aliquippa South Fayette about 10, 15 years ago. We have seen North Allegheny Central Catholic now for a fourth straight year. And we get Pine Richland Peters Township for a third straight year. Fourth straight trip to the finals for Pine Richland. Fourth straight trip to the finals for Avonworth. 3 and 4 years for the Steel Valley Ironmen. Back-to-back trips for the Seton LaSalle Rebels, and back-to-back trips for the Clairton Bears, and a lot more if you want to keep going further back. The new kids on the block will be Imani Christian, their first championship game appearance since 2017. First game ever at Acrisure. That 2017 thriller, 35-34 loss to Jeanette, was at Robert Morris University. And first trip ever to Acrisure for the Laurel Spartans. Last time they were in the title game, 1989 at Three Rivers Stadium when they played the Clairton Bears. So we get a little bit of new blood, but it's the same old. It's impressive. You give the John Ladons, the TJ Placks, the Duke John Coors, the Ray Brazos, the Wayne Wades, give them all the credit in the world. I think coaching in the high school level is much more important than I think the higher up you go at the collegiate and at the professional level. A good coach can turn a bunch of scrubs into a good team, and a good team into a championship caliber team. But that being said, is there something wrong here? We're coming up on a realignment. There's all kind of ideas out there what the football steering committee should do. Is it something that I've always been a believer that the more excitement there is spread around, that's not to take anything away from these dynasties, the more it's spread around, the better I think the league is as a whole. You guys may disagree or agree. Just general thoughts on, again, a lot of the familiar faces on the North Shore next week.
And tomorrow's the same way at Pine Richland. Don't forget about that either. McKee Sports been there 3 straight years now. That's a program that's with over 700 wins. Aliquippa, same deal, almost 800 wins for them. And we've seen Central Catholic and North Allegheny. That's something it's at nauseum at this point in Class 6A. I think we talked about this on the pairing show a little bit. I think 6 is still too many. And it really hasn't had a lot of parity since we went to 6 classes. We've had some tremendous football games in the playoffs and in the championships over the course of the 6-class run here. I think generally speaking, it's just too many classes. There's not enough good teams in every class that kind of play against each other and can stop some of these dynasties. But at the same time, take nothing away from all these teams that just continue to breed talent and get down there. And that starts much before the high school program. At least in my opinion, it starts much before the high school program with these coaches and these staffs going down to the youth level, go into middle school ball, and then if they have freshman teams up onto the varsity roster. You've got to do everything right to build a power like you're seeing at Aliquippa, like you're seeing in McKeesport. Central Catholic obviously isn't the same there, but North Allegheny, Avonworth, went down the list. Clairton, you've got to continue to kind of talk about those teams and what they've been able to do program wide, not just outside of the varsity level. But yeah, I would think it's just too many classes still, and we need to have maybe fewer classes or more of the powerhouses, if you will, kind of spread out into the same classifications. Because I would also make the argument that some of these teams go down, like a Newcastle, let's say, beats Aliquippa last week, or we get one of these newer, fresher faces that knock off one of these perennial powers, whether it's a quarterfinal or a semifinal. I think that makes the story and the narrative a lot more fun going toward the championship. Instead of just seeing rinse repeat in these championship games, which again, no disrespect and congratulations to the teams that are getting down there consistently. And there's a big testament to what they're doing. But is it great for the viewer? Is it great for the regular casual high school football fan? Probably not. And maybe probably isn't even necessary in that it is not good for the general casual high school football fan.
It's not good, but at the same time, it all starts in the youth programs and how the youth programs are built up and the talent that comes through the communities. And, at nauseum, I mean, Central Catholic, they have their method of bringing in their talent. North Allegheny, it's a huge community. You're able to build a key sport. Team like Aliquippa, they just build up from the youth all the way up, and it's a constant. So it's hard to say that it's bad for the sport. It's just a matter of you have to have that ability to start from the ground up. And when you have these communities that start everything young with the youth, that's how you're able to get to these kind of levels and stay that consistent level. And that's why you see these teams that are constantly on top.
We've already talked about the two championships tomorrow. Aliquippa McKeesport at noon, North Allegheny Central Catholic at 6. We will talk all week about the other 4 championship games next week at Acroshore in the build up, and we as the media kind of trying to build them maybe bigger than they are. Will almost try to will that these games are thrillers. And as Kyle mentioned earlier, we have seen some dandies, but man, oh man, we just saw 12 semifinals, and this goes back to last week too, in 4A and 6A. 12 semifinal games in the district. And here are the point differentials. The only one-score game was the Seton LaSalle 8-point victory over Washington. The other semifinal margins of victory here this year, 10 points in a victory for Pine Richland, 10 points in a victory for Laurel, which many will consider a major upset, 20 points for Avonworth, 20 points for Clairton, 27 points for Steel Valley, 25 points for Peters Township, 48 points for Central Valley. Going back to last week, 18 points for North Allegheny, 37 points for Central Catholic, 25 points for McKeesport, 14 points for Aliquippa. Again, people, I used to hear all the time when we were the official rights holders that us streaming games really hurt the gate. I'm not sure that, when you see those kind of results, and again, you consider, and you have to, you can't ignore the weather. But once you get into hashtag November football, it's for the faint of heart. Even on a nice day like today, I think the temperatures hit 50s, but by the time it's nighttime, whoop, it's going down and going down a lot. It's just, again, something that I don't know if it's fixable, but the effort should be made to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, think about last year's championship games too. 1A championship was great, Fort Cherry and Clairton. But after that,
that's because Kyle had the call.
Yeah, Kyle was on the call of that one. But 2, 3, and 5 were all just incredibly, just kind of dull. I mean, you like you said, Pine Richland beat Peters 20-9 in a very uncompetitive championship game. Avonworth rolled Central Valley in another non-competitive championship game. Even 2A last year was not even that competitive. That plays a role in the gate factor too, because this year, at least when you look at things on paper, you're going to get your crowds with Central Catholic and North Allegheny, and you're going to get the crowds with McKeesport and Aliquippa. But when you look at next week, Laurel's going to draw. Why? Because they made it there. Clairton is so used to it. They're going to, their fans come out as well. But this year you get these better matchups. You get your seat in LaSalle. But again, with a Catholic school, you don't always get the biggest crowds. And they're going to face Steel Valley. Steel Valley will bring some fans in. I really think, the 3 and 5A games this year have a chance to be very good. But we've talked about it enough where Amani can't make mistakes. But 5A, it all depends, because it could turn out like it did last year, and Pine Richland or Peters Township, depending on how those two teams come out, could make it kind of a dull game again.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here. I don't want to make anybody upset in the district office, but it's a farce that the games being broadcast affect the gate. They were behind a paywall last year, and they'll be behind a paywall tomorrow, and I don't think it's going to affect the gate. I think the coverage is good. I'll just leave it at that. But to that point, the competitive nature, I think, affects the gate a lot more. And I also just think since COVID that we really haven't had a great opportunity to get a bunch of good games down there. And I think that to the point of the general football fan right now, I just don't think that coming out and spending 10 hours at Acrisure anymore is something that people think is worth doing. When they can just listen or can just watch or they can just follow it on Twitter. They don't necessarily want to go down there and spend the entire day. They might come down there for a game or two. But if they're not competitive games and there's not big time players in those games, then I don't blame people for not going down there to watch when there are other avenues to take the game in. So again, I don't think the broadcast affects the gate. I think the competitive nature of the game has absolutely affected the gate way more over the course of the last, since we went to 6A, really is when we started to see the attendance dip, in my opinion. I've been there pretty much every year since then. We started to see that right around the move to 6 classifications, and you'll have everything's going to look empty at Acrisure with that stadium seating 68,000. But there'll be some teams that draw well. There's been some good atmospheres down there, but at the same time, you just hope for competitive games. And over the last few years, we maybe get one, maybe two throughout the course of the 4-game day. And by the end of it, all the media that's up there and some of the people that are there all day are saying, well, we just sat through 3 horrible football games. Maybe the 4th one will be good. And then the 4th one maybe doesn't live up to the hype of what it can be. So I would hope for 6 competitive championship games. I don't know that we're going to get them. I think we'll get one in 4A tomorrow between Aliquippa and McKeesport. I think the 1A game should be pretty good. But we'll have to see how competitive they are. And again, I just don't know that I think Don's right. There isn't an easy fix. I don't know what the fix is, but the effort needs to be made to try and get it back there so that we can have a lot more fun down there and making these games live up to the hype that maybe some of us in the media put a little over the top.
Well, whether they're blowouts or whether they're thrillers, all 6 can be heard here on the Trib Live High School Sports Network. I'll just throw this out there because Chris Harlan and I were talking about it earlier in the week, that it's tough to legislate competitiveness. But I think what the WPIAL will do it, I would love to see it go back to 4, but it's not.
Yeah.
This is the 10th anniversary, and it's here to stay, 6 classifications. But what I would like to see them is once everything's sorted out, where teams are going, up, down, once the classifications are set, when you're putting together the conferences, I think you have to keep competitive balance in mind. And if you have some teams that have to get on the bus and travel for a little bit, I think it's worth it. I think the 50-0 scores in the regular season, commonplace. It's only a rivalry if it's competitive, and we've seen some great rivalries that have nothing to do with the location or geography. I'm not saying totally ignore geography, but I think that the committee can think outside the box, try to, because you have a pretty good idea over a 2-year slate who's going to be good, who's going to be really good, and who's going to struggle. And I think that should be kept in mind when they put the conference.
Transportation is a lot. I can tell you from experience doing it for a professional baseball team, transportation is not cheap. But just putting conferences together based on, hey, this school's 10 minutes from the other school that's not the best way to do it either.
You don't have to worry about snow. Basketball, I think you got to treat a little different because of the weather. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, basketball, quite frankly, is a lot more competitive. You can have a guy that might be like a Keemon spell on a basketball floor, and they might be able to take the game over. But in theory, is a lot more difficult to do that in football, and it just hasn't been the case.
Right.
Well, I look at what you said, Don, and in a team that I look at as the team they should use to when they fix these sections in realignment is a team like McGuffey, who was in a section with Avonworth, North Catholic, Central Valley, Hopewell. They were never going to be competitive in that conference, and there's no competitive balance for them. I mean, 3A was going to be tough for them to begin with, but they got put into a really bad position to have no success over a 2-year span. Right. So, yes, they're getting to go back down to 2A, but you can't have a situation like that where a team to the level of McGuffey is in a conference where there are 4 teams that are so dynamic. No, and you're hoping. And really, if you looked at McGuffey's schedule this year, your hope was to beat Quaker Valley. That was their one game that they really had the opportunity to pull through.
Look at this. All the way to 11 o'clock. Didn't think we were going to make it, but we did. Final show. Great job, Kyle Dawson. Great job, Sean Saputo. Again, these two busy tonight. Will also be very busy tomorrow, not only broadcasting the championship games, Kyle with Greg A. Smith from McKeesport, Aliquippa, Sean with Ed Troop, Central Catholic, North Allegheny, but they'll also be keeping up with both games on our Trib HSSN social media. Big thank you to Chris Lackner, our producer, all year long. Didn't have to take any cruises, didn't miss any Friday nights. Kudos to him, and we hope you enjoyed another year of the Scoreboard Show. We just love bringing it to you. We will hopefully, fingers crossed, continue to bring it to you every Friday night in the fall. We wish the 4 teams tomorrow and the 8 teams next Saturday all the best. And again, all 6 games will be heard here on the Trib Live High School Sports Network. For Chris, for Kyle, for Sean, I'm Don Rebel. Thanks for joining us. The WPIAL Scoreboard Show wraps up here on the Trib Live High School Sports Network.